Let's talk about some books. Hello, I'm Stella. Welcome to my channel where I predominantly talk about Australian books to get you to run out and borrow, because I'm very passionate about libraries, or buy a book from an independent bookstore if you can. Borrow from a friend or a little library. Do what you like, just don't steal any books. I have got a stack of books here. Some recent reads, some not so recent reads, and what I'm going to read. And amongst this pile is Wolf Hall, because I need to talk about the television series because I just finished watching it. And we start off with my most recent read, not a recently published book. It is a rather classic, The Man Who Loved Children by Christina Stead, originally published in 1940. This one was about 2012, I think, or thereabout, with an introduction by Jonathan Franzen. And when I finished this book, I didn't know what to think of it. And then I read the introduction by Jonathan Franzen. I'm going to say his name a lot. I love his attitude to reading books. He most famously rejected his book from being on the Oprah book club and said, "What's so great about books?" And I totally got it. I totally got what he was saying, because it's kind of my argument too when people say, "Oh, what are you watching that garbage for? Why don't you read a book?" Why? What's so great about books? Which is a very odd thing to say given that this is a book channel, but my argument with that is, if you're reading, look, I don't know how to say, if you're reading, a book that doesn't have much to say, and you're reading for entertainment purposes, have at it, go for it. But you could be watching, I don't know, Wolf Hall, or documentaries, or current affairs. So how is watching, or a really fantastic film, so how is watching a movie, that quality television, any different from reading a book? Do I make myself clear? Anyway, back to the book, The Man Who Loved Children. So when I read the introduction, Jonathan Franzen wanted to know, he thinks it's a classic, very flawed classic. There are parts of it that are absolutely, especially around the middle part, it's like, oh my God, hurry up already. Very strange book, said to be very funny, a lot of psychological abuse. It's kind of grim in its funniness, taken from Christina Stead's own childhood, that she said. Jonathan Franzen wanted to know why this book wasn't a core part of women's studies literature. And that was when it was like, oh my God, this book is about patriarchy. So Sam Pollitt is the father of 7 children. He's married to Henny, who is literally driven to distraction. They'd call it madness or hysteria. And it is up to Lulu, the eldest girl, who's like 13 or 14. And the abuse that's heaped upon her is like quite shocking. She looks after the family. That is all I'm going to tell you. And when I talk about abuse, it's not it's not depressing, and you won't, well, it kind of is a little bit shocking in its past. So that is The Man Who Loved Children by Christina Stead. Let me know, have you read it? What do you think? On a brighter note, I read, I think it's the debut novel by Melanie, Selward, Love Unleashed. Some passions just can't be tamed. Now, Melanie is a First Nations woman here in Australia, a Bigambul woman, and her character, also Bryn Wallace, travels from Queensland, Australia, to New York to, start this huge career. As we know, things don't always go to plan. And as the title suggests, she gets a job in I think it's like a doggy daycare place, and finds love, but in very unexpected places. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was great. I thought it was really great to see it's very inclusive. It's great to see some characters that, like First Nations, Australian First Nations. She talks a lot. Also, her friends are, I think there's a Indigenous Canadian woman that she shares an apartment with. touches on some racism there, but it's just beautiful that the story is about Bryn and finding herself and finding her out other people. Loved it. Gorgeous. Look at that pink colour. Speaking of finding yourself, what a book. Lech Blaine's Australian Gospel, a family saga. This is non-fiction, and it is about Lech Blaine, whose parents were foster parents and then adopted these children, and the the kids' biological parents, their efforts to get their children back, and it's really heartbreaking because the biological parents weren't fit parents, but at the same time, like the pain that the woman, the mother, and she was under the thrall of the father, who was very religious, almost like a cult figure, very charismatic person. And what it meant, like it really is about family love and the rawness of family love. People raved about this book, and it's Harriet Tubman. Wasn't fully engaged by the writing, and that's what some people loved, the particular writing. It was very short sentences, a bit staccato for me, written in a very vernacular manner, but I didn't find it genuine, so to speak. But great story, fantastic stories. Now, speaking of fantastic stories, I was so excited. When I was in my early 20s, I discovered the writing of Dorothy Parker, who, you know, most famously known to be a member of the Algonquin table in New York. But interestingly enough, after I read Dorothy Parker in Hollywood by Gail Crowther, she's an English writer, and her next book's going to be about Marilyn Monroe's love of literature. Anyway, back to the wonderful Dorothy Parker. She saw that part of her life not that interesting. Look, yes, she was a very self-effacing person, but she said a lot of, you know, the jokes that came out of there, and how people talk about, you know, Robert Benchley saying all these wonderful things and how witty everyone was. A lot of it was rehearsed and the same old jokes. Dorothy Parker, like a lot of writers in the 1930s, went to Hollywood, which was just, you know, burgeoning, because they needed writers. Now, she hated Hollywood, but it was interesting. That's where she found her comrades, so to speak. She was a very, very political person, huge on social justice, was involved in the Spanish Revolution at the time, or she bequeathed her estate to Martin Luther King Jr. And she bequeathed her estate to Martin Luther King Jr. Did you know that Dorothy Parker wrote the original A Star Is Born, and was also uncredited on another of other movies? And that was a really wonderful insight into that, how films, like the original writers, like you don't know who the original writers were, because films go into so many iterations. So this is Gail Crowther's Dorothy Parker in Hollywood. Absolutely loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. Thank you so much. Now, I just finished Dusk by Robbie Arnott, or Robbie Arno, if you like. I read The Rain Heron a few years ago and loved it. Thought it was a great book. This one, kind of left me cold. I didn't, it's one of these books that I sort of just didn't care, and I didn't understand the point of it. It's the story of twins Iris and Floyd, who set out to capture, I think it's a puma, and at the same time they're reckoning with their past. So it's a familiar story in a unfamiliar setting. Whether, I don't know whether it's the future or the past. I think it should be set in the 1800s, perhaps, in unknown country. In the book, I just really noticed this. In the book, the puma is black, but on the cover, it's orange. Beautifully told story. Just didn't do it for me. Dear Dickhead, how great does this sound? By Virginie Despentes. How fantastic does this sound? If you've heard of this book, if you've read this book, if you've heard of this writer, let me know. I just saw it on a bookstore in WA. I thought I've got to get that. I haven't started it yet. Two people who insult each other. The man insults her on Instagram. She sends in scathing reply, and then it's back and forth. And then during COVID lockdown, they come to rely on each other, and that's all I know, but I'm really looking forward to reading it. I'm pretty sure it's an English book, but I could be wrong, could be American. It's not Australian. Forgive me for that. Now, speaking of English books, can we talk about Wolf Hall and the series? And I'm not talking about, is it The Mirror and the Light, the first series, Wolf Hall. My neighbour lent it to me. I watched it on DVD. Oh my God, it was so fantastic. And yes, it did the book justice. And I'm so glad it was series and not a movie, because how could you fit that in? I especially loved, Rylands as Thomas Cromwell. You know, talk about the king of understated acting, and the number of young women throwing themselves at him. I've been saying I love it a lot in this video, but I was really, and what I really liked about it was how naturalistic, you know, the English have this wonderful way of filming this series. I can't, you know, of course the subject matter is English, but I just can't imagine another English-speaking country, I'm talking about the USA, of course, filming this. It would have been totally different. There's something very low-key and naturalistic about it. This was before Henry's ego fully took control. He hadn't killed his first wife as yet. Now, The Mirror and the Light, I'm not quite 100% sure if The Mirror and the Light has come out in Australia as yet. It might be on one of the streaming services, I don't know, but I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I haven't read the book though, and my book is falling down, and I'm wondering, should I read the follow-up to Wolf Hall before I embark on watching more of that? One last final book I'd like to talk about, How Fiction Works by James Wood. Now, this really is James Wood is he's a professor in literary criticism. Look, don't leave me now, don't fall asleep. There's nothing pretentious about this book. It is one for writers, but as readers, it's really interesting the way he delves into some of the books. And I think learning how to read a book it's not just the words that we're reading, it's something beyond that. It's the nuances, it's what is the writer telling us, what is the writer not meaning to tell us. And it's especially interesting reading books set in different periods or written in different periods, like the way we read books now compared to, say, the way people were reading books 50, 60, 100 years ago. It's quite different. And what do we bring ourselves into it? Beautiful stuff. Takes a look at, there's a core set of books there, although it's such a small book, and the bibliography in the back is like, he references 96 books. So that's How Fiction Works by James Wood. Tell me what you think. Have you read any of these books? Have you seen Wolf Hall? What would you like me to talk about next time? And I'll see you later. Bye.